guys, welcome to another episode of Smash JT. In this episode, I'm going to give you my first impressions for Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, coming out September 7th of 2018. Now, going into this game, I had some pretty high expectations, and playing through it, it lived up to most of them to a T. It was blowing me away. There were a few minor nitpicks I had with it, but overall, I can't wait for this game. JT. One of the coolest parts about going to Comic-Con is getting extra stuff for free, and this was no exception. When you went to wait in line for Spider-Man on PlayStation 4, they gave you a free copy of the Daily Bugle, where they made an entire newspaper to help promote the game, and this absolutely blew me away. While I was waiting in line, I was reading through this, and they put so much work into it. I love when companies do this kind of stuff, and Insomniac Games is the one making Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4, and they're the same people that made Ratchet and Clank and Spyro, a ton of big hits on the original PlayStation, games you've known to love and played for a long time in your entire life. Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4 looks to reignite the entire superhero genre, and me saying that is not to be taken lightly. The game was an absolute blast to play. I couldn't get enough of it. I played it for, give or take, about an hour throughout the day at the booth they had set up at Comic-Con, and every single aspect of it was almost perfect. During the demo, I was able to freely roam around the open environment of New York City. I was traversing the world, getting into the occasional fight with a bunch of bad guys or street robbers, and from the very beginning of the demo, I couldn't believe how easy it was to freely swing around the environments. It felt natural. It felt exactly how I always wanted to feel playing a video game as Spider-Man. Holding the R2 button while tapping the X would give you a speed boost for an even quicker traversal. You could shoot through the entire city with ease, really quickly. It didn't waste much time, but you could waste time if you wanted to, and being an open world experience, that was one of the things I wanted to test out, is just messing around with the city and seeing what I could do. And that's one of the small areas where I had a little bit of disappointment with this, where I know people will hear this and be like, why are you mad at this? But hear me out. When I first started playing the game and I was walking on street level across all these pedestrians and jumping up and swinging my webs, everything seemed quite normal. Nobody was really surprised that Spider-Man was walking the streets, and a part of me was kind of hoping that I'd be able to get in a car and drive around like Grand Theft Auto. And I know it's not Grand Theft Auto, but it's kind of hard to shake that feeling when the game looks so similar to Grand Theft Auto 5, especially in the downtown area. It's open world, it's downtown, but it felt a little bit more like Mario in New Donk City, where you were restricted to what the game would allow you to do instead of being able to do whatever the hell you wanted. That was my initial impression of walking through the streets of New York in Spider-Man. The feeling of GTA went away about 20 minutes in. The reason why I bring that up is don't be surprised when you first load this game up that you don't feel the exact same way, but it will go away. The game itself was fantastic, and it hit every single point I wanted a Spider-Man game to do. My initial fears going into this experience would be that the fighting and the combat style would be way too much based on quick time events and way too heavily reliant on the trendsetters before it. I'm looking at you, Batman Arkham Asylum. But for the most part, Spider-Man was able to do the combat and stand on its own 2 feet. It felt extremely unique. It didn't feel like it was copying the Batman series on the fighting. You could use webs and sling items around by grabbing them with your webs and using the force of inertia to whip them around your head and destroy bad guys or explode bombs on their faces. And one of my favorite parts about the combat system itself was it was challenging, but the button combos and how you actually go about combat was easy to pick up and very difficult to master. I wouldn't be messing up the button combos so much as trying to figure out what would work best on different enemies, how to go about picking up items, when to dodge, when to start throwing things at them, when to punch, when to jump. It felt like there was an endless amount of things you could do to stop these bad guys in their tracks. Anything from punching them in the face to putting webs around their bodies so they'd stick to the wall, using your webs, slinging things around, knocking them over with it. It was a nearly endless amount of things you could do during the combat, which really kept everything fresh while I was playing through the demo. And while, like I said earlier, earlier, the game doesn't have the amount of freedom as, say, a Grand Theft Auto game would have. The amount of story-driven content was insane, and one of the best parts of any demo I've ever played was involved on the Spider-Man for PlayStation 4, where you went to fight Shocker, a Spider-Man bad guy, in the bank when he was trying to rob the vault. The storyline and the cutscene that they show was hysterical. Spider-Man uses his webs to lock the vault door behind him, while Shocker punches Spider-Man through the vault door. While I didn't get this on footage because they already recorded the maximum amount they're allowed to, let me tell you, this first boss fight in the game, oh man, it really sets the stage for what to expect for the rest of the entire experience. There was a weight to the objects you'd be picking up. If they were really heavy in the bank, you'd need to sling more webs at it before you were able to start swinging it around with the inertia and power that Spider-Man has to wield. But it wasn't just button mashing and random throwing things. You had to time it right. You had to watch the end boss to see when he'd be attacking you, where you could hide behind things, when would be a good time to start slinging the webs at the heavy objects, to start throwing them at him in between his attacks. And in this area of the demo, I found so much attention to detail. My excitement level for this game ramped up tenfold. From the looks of it, this game is going to be everything I could have hoped for and then some. I can't wait for it to come out on September 7th on the PlayStation 4. And if you're wondering, they're actually making a special Spider-Man edition PlayStation 4. It's going to be red with the Spider-Man logo on it. They had that at Comic-Con also. It looks badass. As far as the potential for this game going multi-platform down the road, I have to give a shout out to Eric Ponder, my Patreon, who let me know Sony had given the rights from Marvel to Insomniac to make this game. So by doing that, it is a Sony exclusive, and Sony does not make multi-platform games. So much to the dismay of a lot of gamers out there, this is strictly coming only to the PlayStation 4. In fact, Insomniac Games put out a tweet confirming this. We can't change that. Spider-Man is a Marvel property. We don't control that. Sony doesn't do multi-plat games. And while anything is possible and could certainly change, it doesn't look promising. So if you want to play Spider-Man, you're gonna need to get a PlayStation 4. With that being said, that's where I'm gonna end this video here, but I am interested in your thoughts. Are you looking forward to playing Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4? Are you gonna pick it up day one? Gonna wait and see? Or is this really not up your alley? Let me know down in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one. As always, the Smash JT channel is brought to us by you generous Patreons out there. If you're interested in joining them, hit the Patreon link below. You can donate as little as $1 a month. Everything makes a gigantic difference. If you enjoy the content I'm making here, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit the bell for notifications. And again, thank you so much for watching.